MAGA spokespeople are collapsing under the pressure of Donald Trump's economic lies. They are barely able to hold it together because Trump is straight up gaslighting the country and his followers about what's going on in this economy. And his defenders are now melting down on live television. You know it's bad when even Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council of the United States, gets into an exchange about the jobs numbers. Remember, Trump didn't like the disastrous job numbers, so he fired the person who compiles the numbers. Don't want to be pregnant? Just don't take a pregnancy test. Don't want COVID cases? Slow down the testing, right? That's the approach here. So Hassett was asked, Trump claims the numbers were wrong. Do you have evidence? And Hassett says, the numbers are themselves the evidence.
Yes.
All right, but bottom line, were the numbers wrong? Do you have any hard evidence that you can present to the American public that these numbers, these revisions that were reported, and there were plenty of revisions under former President Biden, including right before the election, do you have any hard evidence that these numbers were wrong?
Yeah, there is very hard evidence that we're looking at the biggest revisions since
It's rock hard.
1968.
Are you going to present
if
that
you look
evidence?
at the number itself, it is the evidence.
But you're saying it's an outlier, it's not evidence, Mr. Hassett.
It's a historically important outlier. It's something that's unprecedented.
Still
so unprecedented
it's still
that
not
I've been looking at
evidence,
it for
though.
40 years, and I'm like, it must be a typo.
The argument is, I believe this has never happened before. Therefore, by definition, it must be a lie. The books must be cooked. The problem is that not only is the assumption not valid, sometimes something worse than ever before happens. That's just a reality. If you look back at revisions, in March of 2021, Biden was president, there was a downward revision of 146,000 jobs. That's a bigger revision, because remember, we saw a revision of down 258K over 2 months. In March 2021, Biden was president, downward revision, 146,000 jobs. So the claim, we've never seen such a big revision, is a lie. But what do you think they said back in March of 2021, the month after, right, when the numbers were revised down? What do you think they said when March numbers were revised down and Biden was president? Did they say, oh, the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics is clearly cooking the books? We've never seen such a big downward revision. No, they said, look at these numbers. We trust the numbers. We believe the numbers. What a terrible job Joe Biden is doing. So their argument is the data must be a typo. That's it. That's it. This is all because we were told there would be a booming economy by now. And it turns out that those inflated jobs numbers that Trump bragged about, which weren't so good to begin with, were wrong. They were really wrong. And the defense from Kevin Hassett is, I looked at a chart. I misread it, by the way. And I believe that it's just a typo. No data, no alternate numbers, just a denial. And this is the best that they've got. They spent years pumping us with propaganda, like almost like they were injecting bleach. They were injecting propaganda. Trump's economy, it's going to be like nothing we've ever seen. And now that we're seeing the numbers and reality is sort of setting in here, they're sputtering on air. They're stunned anybody has the audacity to ask for proof. And it's very revealing. This is what happens when a political movement builds its identity around a cult leader instead of around facts. If you build a movement around facts, when the facts change, you just adapt to the facts. When you build a movement around a cult leader, when the facts change, you need to find better facts that are going to placate the cult leader. And when the facts fall apart, the spokespeople do too. Here's another one. Kristen Welker asking Hassett, is the president going to fire anybody who reports data that he doesn't like? Good question, right?
Is the president prepared to fire anyone who reports data that he disagrees with?
No, absolutely not. The president wants his own people there so that when we see the numbers, they're more transparent and more reliable. And if there are big changes and big revisions, we expect more big revisions for the jobs data in September, for example, then we want to know why. We want people to explain it to us.
There you go. Of course, there is no evidence that the people Trump selects will give us more reliable information. In fact, I would be very suspicious of that. Imagine if we had allowed Trump's people to give us information about the 2020 election. They would have said, well, Trump won, he gets to be president. So we know from experience, Trump's people giving us the information isn't great. Finally, those sirens you were hearing in the background of the interview, massive protests in DC happening to sort of enhance the dystopian mood of these extraordinarily authoritarian interviews.